The golden age of Hollywood, an era of glitz and glamour, when studios reigned supreme and actors were treated like royalty. From the 1920s through the 1950s, names like Clark Gable, Judy Garland, and Humphrey Bogart came to define American cinema. But behind the flashing cameras and elegant premieres, some Hollywood stars carried shocking secrets. Today, we unveil the darker side of Tinseltown's classic era. 20 Golden Age actors who broke the law. In this documentary, we'll explore the secret arrests, convictions, and allegations overshadowing some of Hollywood's brightest stars. We'll meet a silent film comedian tried for manslaughter, a leading man busted for narcotics, and even an actress who took part in a notorious sex scandal that rocked Los Angeles society. Some were acquitted or wrongly accused, while others fully admitted guilt or got caught red-handed. In each case, we'll reveal how they juggled their public persona with private turmoil, and how the public often forgave them if they delivered box office gold. Roscoe, Fatty Arbuckle, manslaughter charges, and media mayhem. First on our list is Roscoe, Fatty Arbuckle, a pioneering comedian of the silent era. At one point, he was one of Hollywood's highest-paid stars, delighting audiences with his slapstick routines. But in 1921, a tragic event at a San Francisco hotel suite changed his life forever. On Labor Day weekend, Arbuckle hosted a party at the St. Francis Hotel. One of the guests, aspiring actress Virginia Rapp, became seriously ill and died a few days later. The newspapers seized upon lurid rumors that Arbuckle had assaulted Rapp, causing the injuries that led to her death. He was charged with manslaughter, and the trials became a national spectacle. Headlines screamed about Hollywood's debauchery, fueling a moral panic that threatened the entire film industry. Arbuckle endured 3 trials. While the first 2 ended in hung juries, the third finally acquitted him. The jury went beyond a simple "not guilty." They issued a formal statement condemning his prosecution as a travesty of justice. By then, however, his career lay in ruins. Major studios had banned his films, and the public was deeply divided. Some believed he was scapegoated, a victim of sensational journalism and the moral outcry against Hollywood sin. Others remained convinced of his guilt. Though officially cleared, Roscoe Arbuckle's name remained tarnished. He found minor work behind the camera using pseudonyms, but he never fully reclaimed his former stardom. He died in 1933 at age 46, having glimpsed both the summit and the abyss of Hollywood fame. Arbuckle's downfall stands as one of Tinseltown's earliest and most dramatic criminal scandals, revealing just how quickly a beloved star could be cast out when tragedy struck. Mae West, arrested for obscenity on stage. The name Mae West evokes images of a sultry, sharp-witted performer known for double entendres and comedic confidence. Yet long before she became a film star in the 1930s, Mae West was causing quite a stir in the theater world. Her unrepentant attitude about sex and female empowerment collided head-on with the conservative standards of the era. In 1927, West staged a play she'd written called Sex at Daly's 63rd Street Theater in New York. The production was a hit with audiences, often sold out, but critics and moral authorities condemned it as lewd and indecent. Local officials soon raided the theater. Mae West and the cast were arrested for corrupting the morals of youth. She was convicted on obscenity charges and sentenced to 10 days in a workhouse. Rather than shy away, West used the scandal to boost her notoriety, quipping that the penal institution was a swell place to visit, but I wouldn't want to live there. This brush with the law didn't end her career. In fact, it helped catapult her to national fame. By 1932, Paramount Pictures recruited West to bring her brand of humor to the screen, carefully navigating the production code that censored sexual content in movies. Her Hollywood scripts bristled with innuendo, just subtle enough to dodge censors. Looking back, Mae West's arrest seems almost quaint, a clash of evolving social values rather than a harmful crime. Yet in the 1920s, it was a serious offense that could have derailed her rise. Instead, West emerged as one of the era's most provocative stars, proving that a brush with criminal charges might propel a bold performer into the spotlight, rather than bury her in infamy. Robert Mitchum, the weed bust that shocked Hollywood. With his rugged looks and laconic style, Robert Mitchum epitomized the cool film noir anti-hero. Off-screen, he had a rebellious streak that led to a major scandal in 1948. At a time when drug arrests were highly stigmatized, Mitchum was caught up in a narcotics raid that threatened to end his career. Late one night in September 1948, police stormed a home in the Laurel Canyon area of Los Angeles, allegedly finding Mitchum and a few friends in possession of marijuana. He and actress Lila Leeds were taken into custody. The press had a field day. A top star of the post-war generation, Mitchum faced real jail time for drug possession. After a much-publicized trial, he was convicted and sentenced to 60 days in Los Angeles County Jail, serving time at the Wayside Honor Farm. Studio executives panicked, fearing that audiences would boycott a star with a criminal record. Mitchum, famously nonchalant, took the ordeal in stride, posing for grim mugshots and even describing jail as like Palm Springs, but without the riffraff. Upon his release, RKO Pictures orchestrated a massive PR campaign to redeem his image. Astonishingly, it worked. Mitchum continued to land major roles in classics like The Night of the Hunter and Cape Fear. Years later, the conviction was overturned, with evidence suggesting the raid may have been partly a setup to burnish the credentials of anti-drug crusaders. Regardless, the incident left an indelible mark on Mitchum's persona. He became the ultimate Hollywood rebel, untamed on screen and off, proving that even a jail sentence couldn't diminish his star power. Lila Leeds, a cautionary tale of the same bust. Caught alongside Robert Mitchum in that very same police raid was a rising actress named Lila Leeds. Although far less famous, Leeds's life took a far more tragic turn after the 1948 marijuana scandal. An aspiring starlet, she had enjoyed minor roles in films like April Showers, 1948. But that fateful night in Laurel Canyon derailed her prospects entirely. Like Mitchum, Leeds was arrested, booked, and splashed across the tabloids as a fallen starlet. She was similarly convicted, serving time for marijuana possession. But where Mitchum had a powerful studio and a substantial public following to rescue his career, Leeds had no such safety net. Upon release from prison, she struggled to find acting work, blacklisted by studios leery of tarnishing their reputations. In a bid to rebuild, Leeds starred in a 1949 exploitation film titled She Shoulda Said No, also released under alternative titles like Wild Weed. The low-budget film tried to capitalize on her notoriety, featuring an overwrought moral about the dangers of drugs. Far from igniting a comeback, the project only cemented Leeds's typecasting as the bad girl, undone by narcotics. After a series of personal setbacks, failed relationships, continuing struggles with addiction, Leeds faded into obscurity. She spent years moving in and out of small roles and eventually left Hollywood altogether. Her story stands as a stark contrast to Mitchum's. Where he emerged with reputation, bruised but intact, Lila Leeds became a cautionary tale. A young actress who lost everything after one brush with the law. She was a sobering reminder that Tinseltown's forgiveness often depended on star power and public sympathy. Luxuries she simply didn't possess. Errol Flynn, statutory rape charges, and In Like Flynn. Swashbuckling across the screen in classics like Captain Blood and The Adventures of Robin Hood, Errol Flynn was renowned for his devil-may-care charm and roguish grin. But in 1942, his personal life ignited a major scandal when two underage girls accused him of sexual misconduct. Flynn was charged with statutory rape, and the trial became a national sensation. Prosecutors alleged that Flynn had lured teenage girls to private parties on his yacht. The defense insisted these encounters were fabricated or consensual, with women who lied about their ages. After a sensational trial, Flynn was acquitted, though the details left a permanent dent in his reputation. The phrase "in like Flynn" became Hollywood slang for sexual success, reflecting both his virile image and the scandal's notoriety. Despite the acquittal, many believed the studios pulled strings to protect one of their biggest moneymakers. Flynn continued working, starring in numerous war-era films. The controversy didn't vanish, but his fan base remained loyal. Off-screen, Flynn's wild lifestyle persisted, featuring heavy drinking, globe-trotting adventures, and myriad romances that further fueled tabloid headlines. Over time, the scandal became part of Flynn's lasting mystique, a real-life reflection of the rakish outlaw he often portrayed. He died in 1959, just 50 years old, leaving behind a legacy of iconic roles and a cautionary tale of reckless living. Whether innocent or not, the statutory rape trial remains one of the most infamous criminal cases to rock Golden Age Hollywood, forever enshrining Errol Flynn as the film industry's ultimate bad boy. Charlie Chaplin, the Mann Act indictment. The timeless Charlie Chaplin, beloved for his little tramp persona, might be the last person one would suspect of criminal controversy. Yet, in 1944, Chaplin was indicted under the Mann Act, which forbade transporting minors across state lines for immoral purposes. The case centered on Joan Barry, a would-be actress who had a tumultuous relationship with Chaplin. She accused him of fathering her child and involving her in interstate travel under questionable circumstances. Chaplin fervently denied the accusations, arguing Barry was mentally unstable. The tabloids erupted with salacious headlines, casting doubt on the moral integrity of a cinematic genius. At trial, the government struggled to prove any wrongdoing in the actual travel arrangements, and Chaplin was ultimately acquitted. Nevertheless, the negative publicity was fierce. To complicate matters further, a separate paternity suit ruled that Chaplin was legally responsible for Barry's child, despite blood tests suggesting otherwise. The entire affair became fodder for those who accused Chaplin of subversive behavior and questioned his loyalty to America. He was already under FBI surveillance due to his political leanings and refusal to become a U.S. citizen. In 1952, Chaplin left the United States, effectively exiled by the wave of public suspicion and government scrutiny. While the Mann Act charges didn't end in conviction, they inflicted lasting damage on Chaplin's Hollywood standing. He settled in Switzerland and resumed filmmaking abroad. This chapter in his life serves as a stark reminder that even comedic geniuses could be pulled into courtroom dramas as sensational as any motion picture. George Raft, the Gangster Connections. Known for playing suave criminals and underworld figures, George Raft had a personal life that often blurred the line between fiction and reality. Born in Hell's Kitchen, New York, Raft was friendly with notorious mobsters like Bugsy Siegel and Meyer Lansky. For much of his early Hollywood career, rumors persisted that his success was bankrolled by gangster acquaintances. While Raft was never convicted of a major crime, he found himself under constant investigation by federal authorities. They suspected him of involvement in illegal gambling dens and rumored money laundering. Raft publicly claimed he associated with mobsters only because he grew up with them, not because he condoned their activities. Still, the FBI and tabloids never quite believed he was free of the mob's influence. In 1942, Raft infamously refused roles that depicted gangster violence too graphically, worried it could offend his real underworld friends. Studios grew nervous about his demands and his off-screen reputation, which ultimately limited the roles he could secure. At the height of his fame, Raft nearly had the same star power as James Cagney or Humphrey Bogart, but his ties to organized crime overshadowed his artistry. Despite the swirl of incriminating rumors, Raft technically kept a clean record. Even so, his secret criminal status was more about questionable friendships and rumored illicit dealings than any proven felony. By the 1950s, his career waned, partly due to the persistent whiff of gangster connections. George Raft remains a unique figure in Golden Age lore, a streetwise actor whose off-screen life was as dangerously glamorous as his on-screen persona. Paul Kelly, convicted of manslaughter. Unlike others on this list who faced allegations or were acquitted, Paul Kelly actually served time in prison for killing a man. A respected stage performer turned film actor, Kelly was known for roles that emphasized his earnest, all-American persona. But in 1927, a violent confrontation landed him behind bars. Kelly had become entangled in a love triangle involving the wife of dancer Ray Raymond. During a heated argument, Kelly delivered a beating so severe that Raymond later died of his injuries. Prosecutors charged Kelly with manslaughter. The sensational trial revealed a messy affair of jealousy and rage, ripping aside the wholesome image Kelly had presented to the public. He was convicted and sentenced to up to 10 years at San Quentin State Prison, though he was released on parole after just over 2 years. Remarkably, Hollywood opened its doors to him once again. Kelly returned to acting, gradually rebuilding his reputation through smaller roles in films and on Broadway. Audiences seemed willing to overlook his crime, perhaps swayed by his contrition and quiet demeanor. Kelly's career revival was steady, if not meteoric. He managed to secure supporting parts in notable productions and eventually won a Tony Award for his stage work in 1948. His story highlights a surprising truth about Golden Age Hollywood. Even a manslaughter conviction didn't necessarily mean permanent exile. If the studios believed you could sell tickets, you got another shot, a testament to the industry's merciful but often morally ambiguous approach to scandal. Barbara Payton, from stardom to prostitution arrests. Glamorous, blonde, and brimming with promise, Barbara Payton emerged as a rising starlet in the late 1940s. She secured a contract with Universal International and then joined Warner Brothers, starring alongside heavyweights like James Cagney. Yet, just as her career was poised to take off, personal demons and poor choices led her down a tragic path of criminality. Payton became notorious for a scandalous love triangle involving actors Tom Neal and Franchot Tone. The tabloid coverage skyrocketed when Neal severely beat Tone, leaving him comatose. This episode tarnished Payton's reputation. Studios dropped her, refusing to cast an actress drenched in bad publicity. Financial woes deepened, and Payton spiraled into alcohol abuse. By the mid-1950s, she was arrested multiple times for public drunkenness, forgery, and soliciting prostitution. Mugshots replaced studio headshots as her most frequent photos. She tried to revive her career with minor roles in low-budget films, but Hollywood, unforgiving of box office liabilities, offered little support. In a heartbreaking epilogue, Payton wrote a raw, confessional autobiography, I Am Not Ashamed, detailing her downfall. She spent her final years drifting in and out of jail cells and cheap motel rooms, eventually dying at age 39 in near destitution. Barbara Payton's story underscores how quickly a promising star could descend into criminal arrests once the studio's protective shield vanished. What began as an exciting venture into Hollywood's spotlight ended in a haze of addiction, legal trouble, and shattered dreams. Billie Holiday, the singer-actress with repeated drug arrests. Though best remembered as one of jazz's greatest vocalists, Billie Holiday also dabbled in film roles, most famously appearing in New Orleans, 1947, with Louis Armstrong. While her cinematic output was small, Holiday was undeniably part of the larger entertainment world of the Golden Age. Behind her iconic performances lay a life deeply scarred by trauma and multiple arrests related to narcotics. Holiday's struggles with heroin addiction were well documented, and law enforcement targeted her relentlessly. In 1947, she was arrested for drug possession and spent nearly a year in a federal reformatory. The ordeal caused her to lose her New York City cabaret card, preventing her from performing in clubs that served alcohol. A devastating blow for a jazz singer. Despite pleas from fans and fellow musicians, authorities refused to reinstate her card for many years. Throughout the 1950s, she faced repeated run-ins with the law. Each new arrest brought sensational headlines that portrayed her as a troubled figure, unable to escape addiction. It's widely acknowledged that she also faced racism and harassment from federal agents who targeted African American artists under the guise of drug enforcement. Even as her legal issues mounted, Holiday's artistry never wavered. She delivered some of her most hauntingly beautiful recordings during this tumultuous period. Tragically, she died in 1959 at just 44, still under arrest in a hospital bed. In retrospect, Billie Holiday's life story reflects a harrowing blend of criminal charges, systemic prejudice, and the raw brilliance of a performer struggling against her own demons, and the unrelenting pursuit of the law. Mabel Normand, cocaine, use, and scandal. Mabel Normand reigned as a comedic star in the silent era, collaborating with legends like Charlie Chaplin and Roscoe "Fatty" Arbuckle. But her success was overshadowed by repeated brushes with scandal, much of it fueled by her rumored drug use, specifically cocaine. Though never convicted of a major crime, she was an ongoing subject of police scrutiny and newspaper gossip in the 1920s. Normand's name surfaced in two major Hollywood controversies. First, she was romantically linked to director William Desmond Taylor, who was mysteriously murdered in 1922. She became embroiled in speculation when authorities revealed she was the last known person to see Taylor alive. No charges were filed against her, yet rumors persisted. Not long after, in 1924, Normand's chauffeur shot and wounded a millionaire oil broker with her pistol, leading to further negative publicity, though she was cleared of wrongdoing. The bigger revelation was Normand's alleged cocaine addiction, which had been swirling in hush-hush whispers. Some believe her spiraling drug habit and wild lifestyle contributed to these violent incidents. Studios worried her involvement in repeated scandals tarnished her comedic, girl-next-door appeal. Normand's film career waned rapidly as public sentiment soured. Even loyal fans began to doubt her innocence. While not formally prosecuted for narcotics charges, Mabel Normand embodied the era's moral panic about drugs and Hollywood debauchery. Hounded by tabloids, she never fully escaped the stigma. Normand died young, at 37, from tuberculosis. Her story remains a cautionary tale of how quickly stardom could dissolve when crime and scandal lurked behind the scenes. Lionel Atwill, perjury in a Hollywood sex scandal. Character actor Lionel Atwill brought a distinguished presence to horror films like Son of Frankenstein, 1939, and The Vampire Bat, 1933. Off-screen, however, he was entangled in a bizarre and lurid scandal that shook Hollywood. In 1940, Atwill was accused of hosting orgies at his home, affairs that apparently involved explicit activities with underage participants. When called to testify, Atwill lied under oath about certain details related to the gatherings. He was soon charged with perjury. The press feasted on the spectacle of a respected actor caught fibbing about sex parties. Atwill eventually pleaded guilty to the lesser charge, acknowledging he'd given false statements to protect himself and his associates from the scandal's fallout. He was placed on probation, avoiding jail time, but the damage to his reputation was severe. The studios, eager to distance themselves, yanked Atwill from A-list projects. While he continued to find roles, often relegated to low-budget horror films or minor supporting parts, he never regained his earlier prestige. By the mid-1940s, he was typecast as sinister, vaguely deranged characters, mirroring the public's suspicion of his private proclivities. Lionel Atwill's downfall highlights how quickly a potent cocktail of sex, lies, and moral outrage could topple a Hollywood career. He remained a talented performer to the end, but Hollywood's door to prime roles had firmly closed. When he died in 1946, the scandal still haunted his legacy, a grim reminder of how courtroom drama and sexual intrigue could overshadow a lifetime of work in the Golden Age. Spade Cooley, the singing actor turned murderer. Known as the King of Western Swing, Spade Cooley was a prominent musician in the 1940s and also appeared in a string of Western-themed films, sometimes as an actor, sometimes in cameo roles featuring his band. His folksy charm and musical talent made him a regional star. But behind the scenes, Cooley's personal life was turbulent, culminating in a horrific crime. In 1961, Cooley was arrested for the murder of his wife, Ella Mae. The details were chilling. He brutally beat and tortured her in front of their daughter. This act of domestic violence shocked fans who knew him as the smiling fiddle player and occasional movie cowboy. The trial was widely covered. Cooley's defense team argued he'd been driven into a jealous rage, suspecting Ella Mae of infidelity. Despite attempts to paint the crime as a tragic moment of passion, the jury found Cooley guilty of first-degree murder. He was sentenced to life in prison, though he had the possibility of parole. The story didn't end there. In a morbid twist, Cooley died of a heart attack in 1969 during a furlough from prison, right after performing at a benefit concert. Though he's often remembered primarily as a musician, Cooley's sporadic film appearances connected him to Hollywood's golden age. His descent into violence and a life sentence for murder underscores that sometimes the darkest truths lurk behind even the most wholesome on-screen images. Cooley's shocking crime stands as one of the most brutal examples of a celebrity turned felon in mid-20th century America. Carl "Alfalfa" Switzer, a little rascal with grown-up troubles. Beloved by audiences as the freckle-faced Alfalfa in Hal Roach's Our Gang comedies, Carl Switzer personified childhood innocence. As part of the 1930s short film series, he charmed viewers with his off-key singing and comical mischief. Yet adulthood brought a very different story. Switzer struggled to find stable acting jobs, and soon racked up multiple arrests and legal disputes. After his Little Rascals fame faded, Switzer found himself drifting. He tried everything from bartending to guiding hunting trips, but trouble followed. Reports indicate he was arrested for minor theft, allegedly stealing dogs. He then returned for a reward. He got into bar brawls and ran afoul of acquaintances who claimed he was quick to anger and slow to pay debts. The final chapter of Switzer's life turned downright grim. On January 21, 1959, he confronted a man over a $50 debt, culminating in a violent argument. Gunshots rang out, and when the dust settled, Switzer lay dead at age 31. The coroner's inquest deemed it a justifiable homicide. Switzer had allegedly threatened the other man with a firearm. While not the classic storyline of a big-name movie star, Carl "Alfalfa" Switzer remains an unsettling example of a golden age child actor who drifted into petty crime. His story underscores the vulnerability of young talents once the spotlight dims. The wide-eyed kid on screen bore little resemblance to the troubled adult who died in a hail of bullets, overshadowing the innocent laughter he once brought to millions. Frank Sinatra, early arrest for seduction. Renowned as the smooth-voiced crooner and later an Oscar-winning actor for From Here to Eternity, Frank Sinatra was indeed part of Hollywood's golden age. Before he was the chairman of the board, he had a brush with the law that, by modern standards, seemed almost quaint, but was quite scandalous in the late 1930s. In 1938, Sinatra was arrested in Bergen County, New Jersey, on a charge labeled seduction. Allegedly, he had promised marriage to a woman simply to coerce her into intimate relations. When the truth emerged, she pressed charges. Sinatra spent a short stint behind bars. Charges were eventually reduced to adultery, then dropped entirely when the woman's story changed. Though this arrest didn't lead to a lasting conviction, it gave Sinatra a criminal record that hovered in the background of his early career. The mugshot from that arrest later resurfaced as a curious relic of the star's shadowy past. At the time, seduction and adultery were serious legal matters in certain jurisdictions, reflecting stricter moral codes than today's. In a supreme twist of fate, Sinatra's career soared despite any lingering embarrassment. He rose to megastardom as a singer, then a film actor, culminating in his iconic roles under major studios. Ultimately, this youthful indiscretion barely dented his unstoppable rise. Yet it's a revealing footnote. Even the legendary Sinatra wore handcuffs once, illustrating how swiftly moral laws of the day could snag a star, especially one with a roving eye and a silver tongue. Tallulah Bankhead, the marijuana bust that barely scratched her image. Famed for her sultry voice, flamboyant style, and razor-sharp wit, Tallulah Bankhead was a stage and screen actress who radiated magnetic charisma. Born to a prominent political family, she broke all sorts of taboos with her open discussions of sex, alcohol, and drug use. Unsurprisingly, her untamed lifestyle led to run-ins with law enforcement, in particular, a marijuana bust in the early 1930s. Accounts differ as to the exact circumstances. One version suggests she was caught with pot in a Midtown Manhattan hotel. Another claims the incident happened at a private party. Either way, the local authorities placed her under arrest and threatened prosecution for drug possession. Bankhead, ever bold, reportedly charmed the officers with her flamboyant personality, and the matter was either dropped or settled quietly out of court. Despite that close call, Bankhead never toned down her hedonism. She was infamous for outrageous parties, rumored affairs with both men and women, and her open disdain for social norms. Hollywood studios alternated between trying to exploit her scandalous persona for publicity and distancing themselves when morality watchdogs howled in protest. If anything, this short-lived arrest only enhanced Tallulah Bankhead's legend. Unlike lesser-known starlets who lost everything over a single crime, Bankhead's sheer star power, and possibly her influential family, helped her shrug off the damage. She continued performing, delivering memorable turns in Alfred Hitchcock's Lifeboat, 1944, and on Broadway. For fans and critics alike, her marijuana bust was just another colorful chapter in the larger-than-life story that was Tallulah Bankhead. Hedy Lamarr, arrested for shoplifting. Hedy Lamarr was hailed in the 1930s and 1940s as the most beautiful woman in the world, lighting up the screen in classics like Algiers, 1938, and Samson and Delilah, 1949. She was also a brilliant inventor, co-patenting a frequency hopping system that would shape modern wireless technology. Yet in her later years, Lamarr made headlines for a less flattering reason: shoplifting arrests. By the 1960s and into the early 1990s, Lamarr's finances and reclusive lifestyle contributed to erratic behavior. On at least 2 occasions, she was accused of stealing items from department stores. The 1966 incident involved merchandise from a shop in Los Angeles. The case was eventually dropped due to lack of evidence. In 1991, she allegedly walked out of a drugstore with unpaid goods. Though she claimed it was an accident, the press pounced on the story, and she faced legal scrutiny. For a star once courted by every major studio, these allegations were humiliating. While these crimes weren't violent or high stakes, they tarnished the image of a once revered icon. Friends suggested Lamarr's arrests might have been the result of confusion or an impulsive cry for attention. Despite these embarrassments, Lamarr's legacy endures. Her scientific achievements gained renewed recognition, and her film performances remain mesmerizing. Still, these minor criminal charges serve as a reminder that fame can fade, leaving even legendary beauties susceptible to moments of desperation or confusion that land them on the wrong side of the law. Spencer Tracy, or alternative, the DUI rumors. The legendary Spencer Tracy, star of Captain Courageous, Boys Town, and Guess Who's Coming to Dinner, was revered for his unmatched acting talent. Yet behind his stoic on-screen demeanor, Tracy battled alcoholism for much of his adult life. Over the years, Rumors circulated about drunk driving incidents that occasionally landed him in serious trouble with local authorities. Some acquaintances recalled late-night calls to studio fixers, who rushed to bribe officials, hush up accidents, or pay off property damage. Though official records are hazy, perhaps expunged or locked away. There's anecdotal evidence that Tracy was arrested, or at least detained on suspicion of DUI multiple times. A few hush-hush stories suggest he quietly spent a night or two in jail, only to be released before scandal-hungry press got wind of it. The studios, terrified of tarnishing a bankable star, poured resources into damage control. Publicly, Tracy's struggles with alcohol were glossed over as exhaustion or nervous strain. He often entered short-term sanitariums, which the public was told were rest cures. Regardless, rumors persisted that his driving under the influence posed real dangers, once nearly causing a catastrophic crash, some insiders said. Though unconfirmed by court documents, these recurring allegations show a shadow side to a beloved Hollywood icon. They highlight how the era's powerful studio system could conceal star misdeeds from fans and tabloids alike. If indeed Spencer Tracy dodged DUI convictions, it was likely due to his enduring celebrity and the protective firewall erected by studios desperate to preserve his squeaky clean image on screen. Clark Gable, or alternative, the fatal car accident rumors. Known universally as Rhett Butler from Gone with the Wind, Clark Gable was the epitome of masculine charm. Yet swirling rumors have long suggested that the king of Hollywood once found himself at the center of a fatal car accident, allegedly involving alcohol or reckless driving. In some versions, a pedestrian or another motorist died, and MGM's formidable publicity machine swiftly stepped in. Different accounts place the supposed accident in the mid-1930s, just as Gable's star was rising. The rumor claims MGM executives covered up the incident by paying off witnesses or quietly settling with the victim's family, ensuring Gable never faced formal charges. There are no confirmed court documents or official records to prove it. Studio fixers were notorious for erasing paper trails, and the press was often cooperative when a top star was involved. To skeptics, these stories read like urban legend. Yet the persistence of the rumor, passed down through Hollywood gossip columns and insider memoirs, speaks to the era's willingness to bury scandal for bankable stars. Gable himself never addressed the allegations publicly. He enjoyed a largely positive public image, revered for his heroic World War II service and iconic roles opposite the era's leading ladies. Whether or not the fatal accident rumor is true, it symbolizes how power dynamics operated in Golden Age Hollywood. For studios, preserving a star's clean image often took precedence over the law. If Gable was involved in such an incident, it's possible the full truth will never be known. A final example of the dark secrets that can remain hidden behind Tinseltown's glittering facade. From manslaughter convictions to drug busts, from illicit affairs to hushed-up arrests, these 20 stories highlight a hidden world behind the bright lights of Golden Age Hollywood. While many stars cultivated pristine public images, divine beauties, noble heroes, comedic geniuses, beneath the veneer lay very human flaws. Sometimes, those flaws erupted into sensational court cases, police raids, or clandestine cover-ups, orchestrated by powerful studios. In some instances, the public found ways to forgive. Actors like Robert Mitchum bounced back after serving time, continuing to headline box office hits. Others, such as Lila Leeds and Barbara Payton, discovered that one major scandal could evaporate all goodwill, casting them into obscurity. For some, like Roscoe Fatty Arbuckle, a sensational trial ended in acquittal, yet the label of criminal stuck in the popular imagination, overshadowing their entire career. These accounts also illuminate how the era's moral attitudes and power structures shaped outcomes. Wealthy stars often escaped serious repercussions, especially with top studio lawyers and PR machines safeguarding them. Meanwhile, less influential performers frequently took the brunt of legal and public condemnation. In many cases, the question remains, did these figures truly find redemption? Or was Hollywood simply too dazzled by star power to hold them accountable? As we close the curtain on these stories, remember that Tinseltown's glitz was always polished by human hands, capable of both light and darkness. The true measure of these legendary performers may lie in the complexity of their entire life arcs, rather than the illusions spun by silver screen fantasies. In the end, the Golden Age wasn't just about the movies. It was also about the sometimes scandalous, sometimes heartbreaking, always complicated lives of those who made them.